welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today we are doing a review for the Shadowfell Trilogy by Juliet Marillier, which includes Shadowfell, Ravenflight, and The Caller. So the Shadowfell Trilogy is a YA fantasy series by Juliet Marillier, which is set in a world which has previously been very rich in its folklore and magic, its connection to nature and the good folk, which is what they call the Fae in this world. But in recent years, a new king has come into power who is very afraid of magic and has essentially made all practice of magic illegal, unless it is specifically in service of the king. And so there are different kinds of magic that exist in this world, one of which is the magic of the good folk and those who are able to communicate with or influence the good folk, which is a very rare power, but does exist. There are also people who are called mind menders, who have the ability to influence people's minds, as you would assume from the name. So there are different types of magic in this world, and people who present any indication that they may have any kind of magic are hunted down by the king and either conscripted or killed. So we are following Naren, who has the ability to communicate with the good folk. She sees them wherever she goes. And we also eventually find out that she may have some greater powers and ability to influence them and become what is called a caller. But she does have this magic, this connection to the good folk, and so she and her father have been on the run for years. And at the beginning of the first book, she's separated from her father and starts her journey making her way to a place called Shadowfell, which is this place where she has heard that there may be a rebel force amassing at Shadowfell, but it is very well hidden. Along the way, she is avoiding the king's enforcers, trying to avoid capture or worse, and she also is getting help from the good folk and learning more about the potential powers she may have and how those may be able to help the people of Shadowfell if she does end up finding them. The first book is really following Naren as she is trying to find Shadowfell and find this rebel group. The second book is following her as she is going on a journey of learning, I guess, because she has to, there are certain things that she has to learn and certain trials that she has to go through in order to learn how to really use her power to her fullest ability so that she will actually be able to turn her powers to help the rebels. And then in the final book, we are mostly following her somewhat as she continues on this journey of training and learning, but also we are following the events leading up to kind of the climax of the rebellion, kind of what they have all been preparing for all of these years. This series involves a lot of travel, like every single book involves a lot of travel. The third book probably has the least amount of travel of the three, but the first two books are like 90% travel, which personally was a bit of a struggle for me as not much of a travel person when I'm reading. I don't really enjoy like road trips and quests and stuff where there's a lot of traveling going on. But I do really enjoy the vibes and the characters of this series. This was a reread for me, and I remember very little about it before rereading it. I just had this impression that it was kind of boring, and rereading it, I enjoyed it more than I think I did the first time around, but I can definitely see why the first time I read it I found it kind of boring, probably primarily because of all of the travel. But that is a personal preference and may not be something that bothers other people as much. The story definitely does have some really high stakes moments in it as they are going through these different magical trials and evading the enforcement enforcers of the king. There are characters who have to go undercover and are in very dangerous situations. And I also felt like the series had a really satisfying ending. You know, as always, Juliet Marillier, I think, does a great job of incorporating the good folk and folklore and magic and folk wisdom into the story and how the characters approach life, and so I always just enjoy that. So as I said, there are some elements of it that were not my favorite, but as per usual, I just really enjoyed the vibes of the book. I also did like the characters in it. I like Naren as a main character. I think that she really follows her intuition in a lot of ways, and she really is there as a conduit for like the old ways and the old wisdom of their culture before the time of this tyrannical king. There are times that she definitely frustrated me, especially in situations where the Shadowfell rebels have rules about like how you behave in certain situations. Mostly, like, primary rule is the cause comes first in any given situation. If you have to sacrifice a comrade, if you have to kill yourself before giving up the secrets of the rebels, if you have to, like, all of these things, the cause always comes first. And there are so many situations where Naren even has like direct orders of like, in this situation, like, if your companion gets captured, you have to get out of there because you are so important. And like, there are situations like that, and then she doesn't follow. She doesn't follow that. She knows. It's not like she doesn't know. She knows, because she will think like, oh, such and such would tell me right now, like, to save myself. I always felt a little bit conflicted about those, because I just would be like, Naren, like, you have one job, which is survive, and, well, you have two jobs. Survive, learn how to do your magic. Those are your two jobs. And she has direct orders to not, like, run into danger to save someone else. I also, you know, like, I want her to save her friends, and I like these characters, and so when they're in a dangerous situation, I want her to save them. So, I don't know. I went back and forth between being frustrated with her and also being like, yes, save your friends. Yeah, there's also a romance, which I didn't have very strong feelings about. I liked it well enough. I do feel like it moved a little too fast, but also I wasn't really bothered by it. The guy in the romance is like very tortured, you know, which, like, I understand why. I just feel like, you know, we could have gone a little more in depth, at least, as to like, why is he so tortured? Like I get it, but also I wanted a little bit more out of their dynamic, I guess. But I enjoyed it. It was fine. Yeah, and I think that this series had a lot of themes, but some of the ones that I was particularly thinking about or noticing were around like the importance of keeping the old wisdom or folk wisdom and practices alive, respecting nature and the good folk, because really the good folk are kind of a extension of nature in this world, but also, you know, respecting the like autonomy of others, even if they are different from you, and even if you do have the ability to control them, just still giving people the autonomy that they deserve. Also kind of bridging the gap between the speed and wants and desires and demands of humanity and the natural rhythms and needs and wisdom of nature. And then it also has definitely themes around the cost of war and the sacrifices of war and sacrificing for a cause and things like that. So I think this was, you know, it was an interesting series. I definitely enjoyed it a lot more rereading it, I think, than the first time that I read it. I listened to the audiobooks, which I really enjoyed also. I got them on Scribd, and also the audiobooks worked really well for me personally, because for some of the fair folk, I think the accents were like written into the text, which is not something I really enjoy reading. So listening to the audiobook, I was able to just like listen to the accents, and I enjoyed that a lot more. But I think I gave the first book and the third book 3.5 stars, and the second book I gave 4 stars. So overall, I enjoyed this series. I would love to know if you have read this trilogy and what you thought of it, or if you're planning on reading it. But thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!